innumerable sentient beings. I vow to cut off endless vexations. I vow to master limitless approaches to Dharma. I vow to attain supreme Buddhahood. Okay, welcome to you all. This is our regular Monday night class, April 5th, 2021. And we have a guest moderator, Michael Schnabel, very serious student, very good, sincere student. And he's taking over for Sentha tonight. And let me take a look and see you all. I see Rick is here. This is good. And quite a few of you here. This is good. So don't be shy. Put your camera on, unless you're, that way I can take a look and that I gauge what's going on to see whether if you're like rowing the boat like this, then I know I better kick it up a little bit in my delivery. Tonight is a very interesting night because it's midterm exam night. Now, if I'd said that last week, you wouldn't show up this week. But I wanted to do something that a lot of you are not very familiar with. I think a few of you did when we had the classes in Riverside, actually live classes, and we actually had just a very small grouping of people. Sometimes it'd be a large group, sometimes it'd be a small group, but there was an intimate setting in terms of asking questions, and for me probing their understanding. And this is very, very special because this kind of an exchange is very beneficial so that you can get a feel for Chan, that you understand the language of Chan. So we have Rick Cabrera here, probably my most senior student now. And I remember many, many years ago when we both had hair at that time. And he asked me about Chan, and I said, ask the lamppost. This is such a classical response to that question of what is Chan. But for some reason, the ripeness of him in that moment and the way he was analyzing, he went right to it. He saw that there was something here beyond words. And he's been following me ever since. He's never asked me, what does that mean? One of the things, let me see if he remembers, if you can unmute Rick. Rick, what is the one saying that is most important?
At that time, the one thing that's most important is no likes and dislikes.
Yeah, but the one to know.
To know mind.
See, he is a lot older now. He's going into old timers, but it is to know the arising mind is the non-arising mind. Do you remember that? Of course.
Yes.
But this is very, very important, and he got it right from the very beginning, and he applied it to everything. Is this to know the arising mind is the non-arising mind? And you go, well, which one is mine? And that's again where I would say, never mind. It just is. And what is it? It is just thus. What's thus? Thusness is thusness. And when you see this in this way, it changes the way we look at things. So this idea of to knowing the arising mind, first we have to look at it and we say, this mind is arising. Well, the mind is constantly arising, but this is the phenomenal mind. And the non-arising mind is exactly where it arises. So if we look and we see our hand, we know our hand, we know both sides of our hand. It wasn't like, you know what, I've never seen the back of my hand. I don't know why. I always was looking at the front of my hand, but I never saw the back of my hand. That would not be natural, right? Doesn't make sense. Of course, the knowing mind would know the arising mind. The arising mind does not know the knowing mind. It just simply arising. But it cannot be separated from mind because it comes from mind. And we begin with this kind of a premise. This is what we've talked about all the time about ekayana, this just mind. And so the idea of a mind is very important in Chan in terms of how we look at things. So this statement can apply to anything. So what do we know? What is this knowing? This knowing is the awareness. In this present moment, there is this awareness that's there, just as I know that Eon had come in after I said that we were going to give an exam, but don't worry, you'll be the first one to be asked a question. And the mind is aware of comings and goings, who comes, who joins, and who falls out, and seeing if people are having connection problems. I'm aware of that. This is just there because it's just mine. But we don't have to cling to anything. If it's useful, we use it. If it's not useful, we don't need to use it. And it is in this way. Master Ling Chi was just saying, now that you have this, use it when you need to. When you don't need to, don't use it. Don't be there having internal discussions with yourself or opinions or anything. Just use this mind in the way that it is. And that other aspect of thinking and mental impressions and prejudices, desires, that is the arising mind. Yet we take that to be our knowing mind, and we want to polish it up. We want to clean it. We can't do that. The only thing we can do is just let it be, let it go. And just in this moment, we reset and start again. Oftentimes in retreats, I talk about the practice like being playing a video game. And when you play the video game, there's times when you lose. You get taken away somewhere else, completely off the game. But you just reset and you start again. New game, new moment. New game, new moment. And you're just keeping there. If you found yourself straying off, it's all right. Just bring it back to this present moment. And this is how we use the mind in the proper way. We don't have to worry about how bad we are or whether, I'm so smart, or the opposite. Do you think that psychoanalysis would help me? All sorts of different things like this. Either side of that, whether one has a high esteem or a low esteem, it's still ego. So we just leave that alone. We just practice. What do we practice? Staying aware in the present moment. It's easy. It's easy. Once we get the hang of it, it's very, very easy. But in the beginning, we're tipping towards the future, towards the past, mostly towards the past, unless we have something to anticipate in the future. When I was younger, I would anticipate a colonoscopy exam. Now, some of you are too young to know what those are, but you'll get it in the end, I assure you. But sorry, only the old timers are laughing at that one. But you're thinking about it. The last time I had one, it was over and done with. That was it. Okay, I'm going to get it. So what? It's over and done with. I didn't have to worry about it or anything else, or think about what was going on. It was just something that necessary to do. Chan is just this way. It makes you little by little liberated in this life. How many of you want to be liberated in this life? You don't have to be worrying about what so-and-so said about you or what's going to happen or opening up that letter from the IRS or wherever. I don't know what you guys have in England, if there's anybody from England listening, but I'm sure you guys have it worse than we do. But in any case, it's something that we just are in the present moment, whatever it is. You know, it could be a refund check, but we're so worried. We always jumping and clinging to something that happened in the past and trying to use that. We do use those things. We use them to anticipate the probability of something that's going to happen, but we don't have to suffer from it or cling to it in any way. It is just something that we know that we have to do. And so when we do that, you know, that's fine. It could be something you're anticipating, a vacation, a raise, whatever it is, that's there. Just let it be. It has its time. Everything has its time. And in this way, this is how we practice with Chan. It's very, very simple. Now, for quite a few months now, I've been talking about very, very profound and esoteric stuff. But I wanted to go back to the basics today. I wanted to give you something as to what Chan is and just say, it's okay. It's okay. You're all right. I'm all right. Whatever it is, we get through this. And the more that we use wisdom, the better it gets. So we input wisdom in the present moment, moment to moment to moment. This is our practice. It's really, really our practice. We are thinking about what goes into our mind, what we say, what we do. All of these different things we're careful about. We understand it. We don't have to play to be a saint. The wisdom is kind of one of those newfangled inventions. I come from a long time ago where they had these ovens. They didn't use wood. Thank goodness I was after that time period. But I still remember, I don't know how many of you old timers would, where the commercials would say, now you're cooking with gas. But that's really carbon dating a few of you, you know. So gas ovens was the newfangled invention. But in this time, we should take our practice like a self-cleaning oven, that we just keep staying in the present moment. And you're cooking with gas now. Not only that, but you are letting the oven self-clean. That was a big innovation in ovens, is self-cleaning. And so voila, you open it up and all of the carbon and everything that was stuck to the sides is down on the bottom. And then you have to sweep it out, of course, or vacuum it or whatever. But it's a self-cleaning oven. I don't know if they still advertise that. I don't know how that went. But it's a good analogy to say, in terms of our practice, that we have this self-cleaning oven. We have this way that things go. Now, Shifu comes from a different time period. And so even further back than me. And so this is how he would say it. He said, it is like you were going through and you went through a swamp and you come out of the water and there's leeches all over your body. Okay, I don't know what the word is in Chinese. So if you don't know what that is, it's just these little blood-sucking things on you, snails kind of thing, or I don't know what they call them. But I've never had a leech on my body before. So it's hard for me to equate to just an analogy like that. But all I know is that you know, it's got to be awful where you have these things that are sucking your blood and they look like a snail without a shell. And he said that if you try to pick them off and by the head, then the head may remain there and it might become infected. And you have to do that to each and every one. But it's better for you to pour salt all over your body. When you pour salt all over your body, you create an unfavorable environment for the leeches, and they naturally fall off. So, obviously this comes from a different time period. I don't know, maybe some of you have had leeches on your body. Rick, you came from the Philippines. I don't know, have you ever had a leech on your body? No, not even Rick. So anybody had a leech on your body before? Nobody. So that's kind of hard to equate to that. So we have to use modern day analogies to use, and who knows what you guys are going to be using, Michael and Ian and Senthan. You guys are going to come up with something and saying, aha, Gilbert used to use a self-cleaning oven, where we don't even have ovens anymore. It just instantly gets hot. So, or you guys could say we don't have any ovens anymore because we've destroyed the environment and we're cooking with fire again. But in any case, we use these analogies to say that when we practice, we don't have to discipline ourselves and try not to do things. It comes naturally. When we calm our mind, when we bring our mind to this awareness of the present moment, when our mind is in a contemplative state, it gives no fertile mind ground for any kinds of unnatural thoughts to arise. What are the unnatural thoughts? The natural thoughts of the idea of an ego, a life and being, or a personality. And you go, but I need that. I need that. No, you don't need that. You need wisdom. That was the big turn where people were going, everything is real and you just have to understand this. And there was a big turn with Mahayana and saying everything is empty. We use wisdom. So you use wisdom all the time. So it is this wisdom that we cultivate. This wisdom that we lean on, and we leaning on until finally, there's no support even for the wisdom. There is no wisdom nor any attainment. What? How did that happen? Naturally. We just see the things as they really are. We talk about suffering and the cause of suffering and the cessation of suffering and enlightenment, but then we look at it and say, all of that is really a pipe dream. It's just a dream because ultimately mind is mind. Now, without knowing that, without having the knowing mind and turning the mind's eye inward so that we can begin to release this wisdom, this really fundamental, profound wisdom, we go around just like a planarium. I think there was a little animal like that doesn't have eyes and just moves around, but it doesn't know where the heck it's going or anything. It's very, very basic. We're not in that way. We are expanding our awareness. And this awareness comes from mind itself, not from something that you can't do. It's like the equivalent of somebody who is a very proficient musician, going to the highest level schools, sitting in with a jazz band and then trying to keep up. Although they're very, very proficient and they're very disciplined, they can't feel it. They can't feel the flow of it. And us is what we do is we play jazz. It's spontaneous. It's in this moment, always in this moment, working in this way. Once the great Louis Armstrong was asked by a reporter, what is jazz? And he said, if you have to ask, you will never know. I would have told them to ask the lamppost. But in any case, it is just in this way. We elevate our practice to a practice of an art, the art of Chan. I remember talking to a retreat group in Taiwan and telling them this, and having them kind of almost drop their jaw because they were so rigid in everything that they did in the retreat. And then when I'm talking about this as an art, an expression of art, there's a freedom there, a really great freedom that you can express. You don't need the self to express it. In fact, if you have the self, it stifles it. But the freedom of being able to say things. Now, Gilbert every once in a while comes in and messes everything up. And he messes up my jazz playing. And everybody looks at me and says, well, what are you playing? That sounds all horrible. But we just go back. We're practitioners. So we just keep practicing and practicing and practicing. And we try to get this. But if somebody's to look at me and say, oh, Gilbert, you didn't say this, or you said this, and this came before this, or this, and whatever, please, go bother somebody else. I'm playing here. I'm playing. And it's my tune. And if you listen long enough, you'll get it. It's a free expression coming from the heart mind. So I say heart mind because this is a Chinese term, very interesting, because it is how the Chinese defined mind over the idea of a consciousness, this heart mind. But heart is more than, going like this, right? It's more than that, or Korean style. And so it is mind itself. The when we say mind, we're talking about the mind ground. When we say heart, we're talking about the function. What is the function? Compassion, interest in the suffering of others, even though they don't exist. There's still a disturbance in mind. So the Chinese needed 2 words to talk about it, but they did good. They picked the right words to say it. So many people don't understand mind. They don't understand what mind is. They think that it's housed inside this coconut that we have on the top of our shoulders. It isn't in that way. Mind is everywhere, everything. We are created by mind. This book is created by mind. Whatever I have, the plastic cup, is created by mind. And you have to make a disclosure here because I was kind of slapped back because I'm using a plastic cup, and I don't think we should be using plastic cups, evidently. But this was a gift to me, so I would not want to waste it and throw it away. So I will use it until the handle falls off or whatever. But in any case, we do our best. And that's the whole point. We do our best. We cannot be indicted by one thing we do wrong. We try as much as we can to practice in the right way without putting pressure on ourselves. When we try to be the perfect person, there's too much pressure on ourselves. It's not being the perfect person. It's manifesting wisdom naturally, letting it come out. We can do that. If I can do it, you can do it. And it is, to me, the compassion that is more difficult. Now, there's 2 different kinds of people. I should say 3 different kinds of people. Ones that have no compassion and no wisdom, and the ones that have more compassion than wisdom, and those who have more wisdom than compassion. Which are you? You think about that, where you balance out. I'm not going to ask you for a show of hands, but you can think, do I have more wisdom or do I have more compassion? And you go, I never thought of that. But you have to think about it and take a look and say, this is what I will work on. To me, it's very interesting because now you wouldn't know it, but many, many years ago, I would say compassion to me was a harder thing to develop, but it was developed. Um, and um, and so there's more compassion there than there was, but there still needs more. And we just try to balance it off. This is our practice. So we work on this. We work on that. And how do we work on it? Is by letting go of things, by being compassionate in terms of people, and to see, if you can help, and if you can help, you can help, and if you can't, you can't. It it is just in this way we have the interest. Today, I was setting up for this class, and at the time I heard some noise outside, and a person rang my bell and my doorbell, and he was very, very poor. And he was asking me permission to leave his car in the front of my house, because it needed a clamp on the water hose. And I went outside with him to see if I could help him. I could have just given him permission and said, fine. But I went outside with him, and I couldn't help him on this one. But actually, in the exact same place, about a year ago, the same thing happened with someone else, and I was able to fix their car for them. And they were very, very happy. This is just compassion. We don't think about it and go, what time is it? If we have that little extra spare time, maybe a minute, two, or whatever it is, we practice in this way. It helps us. And it takes pressure off of somebody else in terms of worrying about whether or not their car is going to be here or going to be towed away. So in any case, that's just a small example of using everyday compassion in whatever we do. Now, I spent a half an hour as a preface to what I was going to talk about, but this is essentially what I wanted to talk about. This is kind of one of those fireside chats that I would give to my Riverside group when we were all together. And I could gauge the audience from looking at them. Here, I just have to. If you ever see me scan like that, that's I'm watching you. So we're going to start, and we're going to throw you into the deep end for a moment. And just slide here. Up. I can never figure these out. There's so many combinations. One of them makes it look like I'm in a circus. But I have to get the right one to read the book because it's very fine print. A monk asked, now pay attention, really pay attention right now, okay? Pay attention. All actions are the function of the Dharmakaya. All actions are the function of the Dharmakaya. What is the Dharmakaya? So the Dharmakaya, we could say, is mind ground, but this goes right to the essence of our practice, to know the arising mind is a non-arising mind. It's the same thing. The inquiry into matching halves, remember when we discussed that? So here it is. All actions are the function of the Dharmakaya. So what is the Dharmakaya? So this is a master, Don, D-A''A''N, said. So his answer was, all actions are the function of the Dharmakaya. Wait a minute, didn't he just repeat the question? He gave the answer. What does this mean? All actions are the function of the Dharmakaya, and then he responds, all actions are the function of the Dharmakaya. So what does that mean? I'm leaving it open. You guys put your hand up, or else I'll start calling on you, as I would in my my regular Riverside Monday night classes. So anybody want to take a chance? Don't worry about this. You're not going to be graded. What does that mean? All actions are the function of the Dharmakaya. Nobody wants to. I mean, all of you brave people, some of you are teaching already. Some of you are teaching. What are you teaching then? If you can't answer this question, what are you teaching? And Sue's going like this because she says, I don't want to be a teacher. Shame on you if you step up. What does this mean? All actions are the function of the Dharmakaya. What does that mean? Yeah, go ahead, Michael.
So I would say it means everything is perfectly at its place, like causes and conditions never ever fail.
And where does that come from? Causes and conditions never fail.
From that it's all connected and it's perfectly appearing. It's perfectly manifesting as a compassionate function of the mind to wake up whatever is moving.
Okay, can somebody build on what he just said? He took it halfway there.
It is just mine.
It's just mine. Okay. I give you a quarter credit. I give him half credit. All actions are the function of the Dharmakaya. It's what you missed out. You almost had it. Anybody? Eon, you're just sitting there. You're not doing anything. Answer the question.
The question's already answered.
Then go have a cup of tea. This is, where's Harry? Harry would know. Give him a Harry question to answer. You there, Harry?
I should do what Vimalakirti did and just be silent. That would be a good answer.
I think Eon already used that when he got slapped with it. This is so simple. This is not hard. But I did pick a clever one for you guys to start with. All actions are the function of the Dharmakaya. And then he says, so what's the Dharmakaya? All actions are the function of the Dharmakaya. So you're almost there, but you're not quite there. Wendy, I see you there. Wendy Design.
Me? Everything is just the way it is.
But why is it the way it is?
Karma.
Karma. Master Ling Chi, he said that he spent 12 years looking for karma, and after 12 years, he couldn't find anything remotely the size of a mustard seed that you could call karma.
Gilbert, isn't this outside of phenomena? There's no mind. Outside of mind, no phenomena.
Okay, and then we have Rick coming up. He looks like he wants to say something sagacious.
Because it's just following function.
Is following function. What is following function? You guys are all got it going around this.
Just doing what needs to be done.
What
Mind
dictates?
cannot be separated in any way.
So if all actions are the function of the Dharmakaya, it means that everything comes from mind. Everything is created by mind. All functions, whether one says sacred or profane, they all are a function of the mind ground. You all were like dancing all around it with pratika samapada, cause and conditions never fail. But you need to really nail this down, to look at this and go, all actions are the function. We're not just looking for good actions, we're looking at for everything that comes out anything that comes out of my mind is a function of the Dharmakaya. If I say so-and-so is a clown, that's still the function of the Dharmakaya. It may not be proper, but it comes from there in accordance with causes and conditions. So we look at this as very, very basic, very basic. It's like we're looking at a lotus flower, right? And it's like this, and we're just looking at it. And then it opens up. And we go, how did that happen? Where did that come from? And we start exploring, where did that flower come from? Anybody know? Nobody knows where a lotus flower comes from. How many of you from Taiwan? Like, you've never seen a lotus flower in your life? Where does a lotus flower come from?
Where does anything come from?
From the mud.
From the mud. Yes, from the mud. It's from the mind ground. All of that is there, and it can produce the leaves or the lily pods, or it can produce a wonderful flower, all in the course of causes and conditions. But it's all belongs to the mind ground. And when the flower goes down, what happens to it? It goes right back into the Dharmakaya. And it is just in this way, everything is created from this mind ground. And so when we see this, this is different, because you may not see me as a lily, but nevertheless, I come from the same mud. We all do. We all come from the same mud. And we look at things, we go, wow, this is kind of weird, you know. Have you ever looked at people? I mean, it's very interesting how you see people, and you see them and you go, if I was going to make a person, you know, maybe I'd make them a little bit different, but we still function in the way we do. But we, you know, if we went to another planet and the aliens saw us, they would probably run. And of course, to our pets, they just talk to each other and go, where'd you get that bone? Oh, the one with the hairless one gave it to me. No. So it's very, very strange how we see things. So today's class is one just ratcheting it all back, to bring it back to this present moment, to look at things as they are. It's very, very simple. But the manner in which I am presenting this today is the manner in which I would present it in my Riverside class, where people would ask questions, either voluntarily or involuntarily, and then we'd go from there. And by the way, as you go along in this class today, you can ask questions as we go along. So let me see. This is kind of an interesting one. And it's saying, during the Zen Guan era, this was 627 to 649, the fourth ancestor, Zen master Dao Xing, saw a strange celestial sign in the distance and realized that an unusual person must be living in Nintu Mountain. He personally climbed the mountain to find this person and pay him a visit. So he goes up and he sees this temple monk there. And he asks, is there a monk here? So if you're a temple monk, it's very interesting, because he kind of put this in you know, in quotes. Well, he's a temple monk. What's a temple monk? Is there a monk here? So if you're a monk, what would you say? Sorry, and the monk responded, who among those who have left home is not a monk? So he's saying, who is there that hasn't left home that's not a monk? Saying, you know, that's kind of a silly thing to ask me. Dao Shen responded, what one is a real monk? What one is a real monk? The temple monk, what do you think he said? You answer for the temple monk. What one is a real monk? Nobody wants to step and help this temple monk answer the question.
Well, I'll take a little stab. So the monks are the left homers, and so the real monk would be the one who has left behind even that vestige of identity.
Well, you might have been able to save the monk. So the temple monk could not reply. He just would not. And that's what happens a lot of times, because in the face of somebody that is speaking Chan, it switches gears. And so your little snide answer to the first one doesn't work on the second one. And so he could not respond. So he's asking him, and which one is the real monk? You left home, but are you a real monk? What is a real monk? And if you answer and you're trying to think it and say, well, there's nothing real, so what should I say? So, but his silence was not the silence of Vilamakruti. His silence was the silence of ignorance. Then another monk from the temple said, about 10 miles from here, in the mountain, there's a hermit. His name is Farong. When he sees people coming, he doesn't get up, nor does he pay attention to common courtesy. Is he the one that you're looking for? So who are we talking about now? Do anybody know Farong? He comes from Nutol Mountain. How do you say that in Chinese? Mei Lin? Okay, so we're talking about Nutol Farong, and he wrote what? Anybody remember? We were studying him a while back. There's Anipan. And what did he write? Nobody knows. Okay, I'll let you look it up. Okay. Dao Xin then traveled to the mountains. There he found Nutol sitting upright in meditation, completely self-absorbed, paying no attention to Dao Xin whatsoever. So Dao Xin asked him, what are you doing? Harry saved you there. Farong answered, perceiving mind. Interesting. He's saying, what are you doing? Perceiving mind. He's not saying he's in meditation. He's not saying he's sitting to become enlightened. He's saying perceiving mind. Mind perceiving mind. Dao Xin said, who is it who is perceiving mind, and what is mind? So he goes right to the heart of it. So he's saying, who is perceiving mind? So he's trying to test to see if this one really knows what he's talking about. And what is mind? Farong had no answer. Standing up, he bowed. Why did he do that?
Following function.
Is that all? What function was there to follow? Let me put it that way, yeah.
My gut is saying that there was a recognition that he didn't have the answers to the questions that were being asked, and so there was an appreciation for that instruction.
Anybody else? Yeah, Melly?
I would think that is, nowadays when people ask question, we always answer with a good question. Say good question. And I would guess that you would just bow and say good question.
So it's
And without saying anything, without the words, that will be the answer.
So, and anybody else? Good answer. Yes, go ahead, Michael.
I think this is equivalent to the silence of Vimalakirti, and he didn't want to steer up waves where there was perfect silence.
Yes, it is in this way where as he stood up, he remember he said that he doesn't pay attention to anybody, but when he heard these words, he knows it's foolish to try to respond to them by words, because it's not within the words. So he stood up and bowed so that to acknowledge that this is one of a profound understanding. So yet it's in this way where he's doing this and saying it, and just like you said, Billy McCritty and Mei Li, where you're saying it's a good answer, he's doing it in this way. So so he later asked, where does your worthiness reside? And he was asking of Dao Xin, where does he reside? And Dao Xin said, this poor monk has no permanent home. Sometimes I live here, sometimes I live there. What does this mean? He says, where do you reside? Go back into this, what we've been studying, and answer the question. Come on, somebody else.
You reside in mind because mind is everywhere?
Say that again?
You reside in mind, and mind is everywhere, so you can reside anywhere.
Do you reside or abide anywhere? Go ahead, Neely.
Yeah, I think it's very similar to what you just mentioned, that action is the function of the mind. And he's answering that he's sometimes reside here and sometimes reside there. Is actually just showing that wherever he goes is just a function of the mind. That's how I understand it.
Isn't that what Manjusri was talking about in the place where Manjusri abides? You remember that? That was about a month and a half ago. It's not that far back, but that was the whole point, was where does he reside? There's no abiding anywhere, but yet one abides in this present moment.
Okay, no abiding.
I'm sorry?
Blabbering away. Put the mute on.
Oh, okay. Farung said, perhaps you know Master Dao Xin. Dao Xin replied, what would you ask him? Farung said, I've respected his virtue for some time now. I would like to pay my respects to him. And Dao Xin said, I am Zen Master Dao Xin. Farung said, why have you come here? Dao Xin said, I've come here specially to pay you a visit. Do you have some place we can take a rest? Farung pointed and said, over there, I have a small cottage. He led Dao Xin to the cottage that was surrounded by wild beasts such as tigers and wolves. And Daoxin, actually, this is the story comes in a different way too, where they were out and they had like a campfire, and they were sitting around the campfire. I'll use mine because it's one that I'm used to, and I demonstrated. So Daoxin, he asked, "Is there any wild animals around here?" And I don't want to get this mixed up. And he said, "Oh yes, there's tigers and wolves." I was about ready to say lions and tigers and bears, but I think there was no bears in this one. Just bear with me. I saw the Wizard of Oz last night. But in any case, he said, tigers and wolves. So Daoxin went like this, like, woo, like scared. And Farung said that you still have this one with you. And then Master Daoxin said to him, "What did you just see? What did you just see?" So why did he say that to him? Anybody know? What did you just see? I've told this story so many times, it's like an open book test.
To me, it reminds me of when Hui Ning went up to the mountaintop and there were those two monks who were arguing about the flag moving. One said it was the wind that was moving the flag. The other said that it was the flag that was moving. And so when he was asking this question, what did you see? You saw your own mind moving.
Yes. And how does that relate to this moment when he asked him, "What did you just see?"
Because the younger monk was sort of making a judgment about the older monk who made the scary thing, saying, "Oh, you still have an attachment. You're still holding on to something." But he didn't realize that, all of that was just his own attachment, because he wasn't seeing just the intrinsic clarity of mind in that moment. He was still seeing through duality.
Yeah. So then later, after dinner, Farung went to sit on a rock to meditate, and he was sitting on the rock. Then the Daoxin wrote the word Buddha, and he took a stick from the fire and wrote it in charcoal, wrote Buddha on the rock that Farung was meditating on. When Farung saw that he was sitting on the rock that had the inscription of the Buddha, he got startled and jumped off of it. And Daoxin said, "You still have this one on your mind." So this is very interesting. We're dealing here at the upper levels of the practice and the subtleties of the practice. The answers are not self-evident. They're subtle. And this is where we're at with mind work. Initially, when people come in to mind work, they stand in front of me and I slap them. "You don't exist." "What? You don't exist." "What?" And then afterwards, it becomes subtler and subtler. Tilt your head this way, just a slight tilt. Just get this just right. Just feel this a little bit more. Listen, use your wisdom. And so this is where it's going here. And saying, even with a practitioner such as Farung, we're dealing with very subtleties, these tiny little tweaks. No, it's no longer the twisting of the nose of Baizang by Matsu. It's much more subtler with that. And it is in this way. one of my favorite stories is about this one, and forgive me because I forget the names of the monks, but the monk was, one monk was visiting with his master, and they had a very good relation, and they spent the whole day talking about the Dharma. And then the master says, oh, it's time for you to go. And so the monk begs his leave and goes out the door. But then a while later, he knocks on the door, and the master opens it, and the monk says, it's now dark. I need a light to be able to find my way. And so the master nodded his head, and he brings him a candle. And so he lights the candle for the monk and gives it to him, and the monk bows with the candle and is about ready to leave when the master goes and blows out the candle. The monk at that point became enlightened. And you go, wow, I wish somebody would do that to me. But it is in the time in which it happened. It has to be the right time for these things to happen. And if they happen in the right way, it will benefit the person. Shifu, he told the story, and I'm going to go a little bit over about this. It was one that was very profound to me, and it was about this one great master, and he had an attendant that had been attending him for several years. And one day the attendant realized that the monk, or this master, had never taught him the Dharma directly. He would teach people, and then when he was done, then he would be there, and the attendant would give him his cup of tea, would give him his robe, whatever he needed, whatever things he had to do, this attendant would diligently do it. But then the attendant realized, this master's never taught me this whole time I've been with him, and he's not even taught me one thing about the Dharma. So he goes to the master and says, Shifu, I clean your clothes, I prepare your food, I take care of your medicine, I receive all your guests, I do this, I do this, I do this, I do this. And so the master said, well, what's your point? And he said, well, I just was thinking during this time period that not once in all these years have you taught me anything about the Dharma. He said, not even one little shred of Dharma. And the master, he said, And he goes to his robe and he says, you want some Dharma? He says, yes. And so he starts picking at his robe. And he gets this little tiny thread. He says, you want a thread of Dharma? And he gets this little tiny thread, and he's just pulling it out till he finally gets it. And he goes, you want some Dharma? And the monk goes, please, Shifu, please. And he went, and he picked up the thread like this, and he went and blew it right in his face. And in that moment, the monk became enlightened. So it's a very interesting story, which then we fast forward to modern day time. And there was this master that was having people, he wanted to build a complex, like a Chan complex or whatever, monastery. And he had all of these people, volunteers, working for him. And so all of these volunteers were working day and night to try to get it done. And the master would just go out and look at it and then go back into his room. And he finally, one of them said, hey, you know what? We've been working so hard, and all he does is he just stays in his room all day long and all night long. But, at least he should be teaching us something. He hasn't taught us anything. And so there's this grumble, 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 grumble of all the people that were there going, yeah, why hasn't he done anything? He's not taught us one little bit of Dharma. So the next day they all get together before the start of the day, and they're all in front of them, this big assembly of workers, and his followers are in front of him. And and they said, you haven't taught us anything, not even the tiniest little bit. And so he says, you want some Dharma? And they go, yeah, we want Dharma. We work for Dharma. And no Dharma, no work. So he says, okay. And so he works again, picking at his robe to get a thread. And he has this thread in front of him and says, you want Dharma? I'll show you Dharma. And they all look at each other and go, and what? What? And he said, you fools, you imbeciles. I've been doing this all this time for this moment, and you missed it. But he was the fool, because it has to be done in a natural way. It cannot be done contrived. It doesn't work that way. You can't just repeat something like a parrot and then think that other people are going to get it. But I'll add one more part to this, and forgive me, because it does involve me, but to show you how this can work. When Shifu told this story, it bothered me. It bothered me to no end. It really made me think, well, why did that happen? How could he just blowing on this thread, and how could that happen? That doesn't even make any sense. So that became my huatou. Why did this happen? I could not rest. I literally could not rest. Everywhere I went, I didn't understand how blowing a thread in somebody's face could make that happen. And it was very, very bothersome to me. So bothersome that I could not sleep at night. When I was walking to the Chan Hall and back, I would just go, why? Brushing my teeth. Why? It was not contrived. It wasn't me doing that. It was that I was stuck in this ball. And I didn't understand it. I didn't know why this happened in this way. It was so, like, I don't know how to explain it. It just obsessed with this. When I would be there to eat food, the food didn't even make any sense to me. It had no meaning. And then Shifu would say, Gilbert, if you're not hungry, just go practice. So he knew something was going on with me. And so I would just go and practice. And finally, I went to one of the meals, and I'd missed some meals, but I didn't even feel hungry. The only thing I had hunger for was, why did this happen? And when I said to myself, I really need to eat. I'm going to collapse if I don't eat, but I've got to resolve this first. So then I sat there and said, I tried to picture it as to how it happened. And so I was seeing it from the attendant's viewpoint, and then I was seeing it from the master's viewpoint. I could see from the master's eyes, from the master's heart, how he was picking at as his robe, and how he held up this thread. I could even see it like they're dangling, and through the master's eyes. And then when he blew it, it was a switch. And I was now the attendant. But something very strange happened in that moment. I could feel the force of his breath on my face. Like if somebody had gone in my face. And in that moment, I just went, this is, I was going to say strange, but I'd never got there. Everything just then collapsed like a scenery in a play. It just, all the stage was struck. And then it rolled back up again. But I saw the difference. And it was very, very peculiar in terms of how that happens. So the causes and conditions have to be there for somebody to be able to get an experience. It cannot be contrived, or cannot be contrived by the student, or cannot be contrived by the master. And Shifu said, well, they, those poor people, they got nothing. And he said, well, maybe they got something. At least they practiced patience. But other than that, they didn't get anything. But it's very strange how it works, because the sincerity has to be there. The attendant had been sincere all this time, and his question and his request was a sincere one. It wasn't indignant. It was just waiting there like an egg that was all cracked. And when he blew it, the shells just blew right off of him completely. So it's very interesting. Chan is in this way. We don't wait for some super mundane thing to happen, because you never know when it's going to happen. You never know when something very strange could happen, but you don't practice for that. If you practice for that, you'll be sorely disappointed, really sorely disappointed. When I started making progress in the practice was when I put down any expectation of anything that's happened to me has happened to me suddenly, with no expectation, nothing like a big buildup that's going to happen and then it happens. Anytime you have that kind of a thing, you might as well just give up, because you're just setting yourself up for a failure. It doesn't come in that way. It comes very quickly, and you never know. It could be something like the monk that hit the hole on a rock, or the nun where the bottom of the bucket fell out. Something very ordinary that can happen. But Chan is in this way. Chan is in the ordinary. It's in the mundane. So we seek our practice here in the present moment, knowing that this mind, this very mind that you're listening to tonight, is the Buddha mind. That's enough. That's enough. We just keep coming back to that. To know the arising mind is the non-arising mind. It is just in this way. We see that. If you don't get that, then just ask the lamppost. Same thing. Okay. I finished with my foolish talk for the night. What Master Ling Chi would say, oh, enough of this trashy talk. Questions? No questions? Michael, go ahead.
I have a question. For these turning phrases to work, like the word, this question you obsessively asked, doesn't it require to have absolute faith in the accuracy of this sentence, so that it's you who is missing something and you want to unlock it? But maybe if this faith is not there, then it's easy to just discard it and say, I will never understand something like this.
Yeah, it's very interesting. Your question is a good one, because yes and no. This whole thing about the question, this why, Gilbert was not part of that. That was something that was happening without any kind of contrivance at all. It just started and it just kept going. But you are correct that there has to be a faith that there's something there. but you don't know it. And it bothers you, because it seems so simple. Why would somebody blowing a thread in somebody's face have him become enlightened? And it could have been anything, but it was in that way. And I was at the right place at the right time with the faith. You're correct about that. But it wasn't something that was induced. It just grabbed me. It's very difficult to explain that other than it became an immediate obsession, and that just kept building and building. And it wasn't something that I was inducing. I wanted to just stop, but I couldn't. It's kind of like one of those times when you see in the cartoons where there's a big fight, and then all you see is a dust cloud, and then somebody jumps out, and then you see a hand pulling them back into the fight again. It's just that way. I mean, it's very interesting. So it comes, yes, there has to be the foundation there for that to happen. And that's why it happened with the attendant of this master, was because the foundation was there. With the others, there wasn't the foundation. So this so-called master couldn't produce the same result because he did not have enough wisdom to see that in terms of that. That's why we don't try to repeat or copy anything that happens, because there's so many different doors that could open up at any moment. Some of them are just a little peek in, some of them blow the door right open. But yeah, good question. Other questions? Nothing? I thought you guys would, yeah, Esther has her hand up. You have to kind of scan through that.
Yes, I have a question here. In your earlier lectures, you mentioned turn the mind eye inward, and later on, I think towards the lectures now, you mentioned turn the mind side inward. So is there any difference between mind eye and mind side?
The mind's eye and the mind inward, they mean the same thing. Actually, I use mind's eye inward just to give people an idea of that it is not conventional seeing. This is actually a very good question, because I did want to clarify this, because sometimes I'll say turn the mind's eye inward, but in actuality, it's because what we're doing is we're using the mind's perception to see things, not the perception from the samsara. So it's kind of reversing the viewpoint, so that it's no longer coming from the idea that somebody is seeing something there. So I did this in I think the Russian European class, but here it is. If someone has a thought, and if this is the mind, and someone's having a thought, here we were using, where did the geese or the ducks go? And so somebody is thinking about it. All of this is happening in the arising mind. It's all temporary appearances. And even this character that is seeing the geese in his mind is temporary. And so rather than seeing things in this way, when we use the mind's eye to see things, then we're using this side to see the other side, the mind's own perception. And so that's why they say turn it around, but the thing is that this person here thinking can never see anything other than the arising mind. It does not know mind, can never know mind. It is an appearance. It's an appearance. It is why Manjusri had no place to abide. Wherever it is, there was just mind. So how could he call it, oh, this is outer mind or inner mind or whatever? It's just mind. And this is important for us to make that distinction. So I use that, Esther, as in a conventional way to explain things, but it's actually not correct. But I still have to use it in this way because it's difficult unless I carry around this picture with me everywhere I go, and say, oh, well, this is what I mean. But in let's say in this level of training, it's better to understand that we're using the mind's perception. It's different than the skandha. The skandha, it all appears here. Everything in the skandha, form, sensation, perception, volition, consciousness, is appearing here. It's on the surface of the mind as a reflection. But mind is so incredibly infinite and deep. But the mind's own perception is capable of perceiving everything. I hate to say this because it's wrong. Within mind, it's capable of perceiving mind. Why? Because there's nothing outside of mind. So when we say, oh, it's within mind, that would mean that somewhere, even these little edges that I have here are fake because it's infinite. But if I try to convey that without some kind of a picture, people would not be able to do that. So there's no mind globe somewhere in where there's a non-existence around it. Even that non-existence, what in Michael's trade, this antimatter or whatever would still be within mind. That it has to be. It has to be connected in this way. You cannot have an antimatter. That would be like alternate type of existence, which is not something that could possibly be established in any way. So anyway, that's the answer to your question is we use the mind's perception. In this moment, we are using the mind's perception, except what happens is it gets all clogged up because you are clogging it up. You're putting paper towels down into the toilet bowl, and eventually it'll just clog up and back up. Chan cleans that and makes it flow in the right way. I hope that one doesn't get into the lecture. But in any case, we have to contemplate what I just said, what that means, this mind perception. It's not a perception in the way that we ordinarily relate to perception. It is the perception of the body of mind by the body of mind. It is just in that way. There's no part of it that is not connected to mind. No part of it doesn't know the other part. But we're not talking about the phenomenal side. The phenomenal side cannot know anything, but all within this mind is capable of knowing all of the phenomenal. And remember, the phenomenal isn't limited to what's appearing in this moment. It has the idea of all time in there. And in this way, this time measurement, spatial measurement becomes really irrelevant to mind. But we cannot know that. I took you way far out now. Any other questions? We only had 2 questions, but they're good questions. You guys have to learn to practice. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Rongchen, you always have questions. You always have things. Do you have next time? I'm counting on you to speak up. Think of something really important to talk about next time.
Sure.
Okay, good. Because I want you all to be able to do this. For the people that ask the questions, the benefit to them is very, very good, because one, they're taking a step out, but two, they are correcting themselves as they go along, and they're developing the ability to speak before an audience and to not have fear to address people and to do things in without worrying about whether this is right or wrong, and trusting their heart. So I hope that you all can begin to participate in this way. I see a lot of familiar names here with no pictures, but I know that you, and Sue, how come you appear twice?
I log in two devices, and
Okay.
Wendy Zhang has a question.
All right, go ahead, Wendy.
I really learned is this how I perceive things is how I see my own mind, and the mind's perception and the viewpoint, and I still don't quite know it. I only remember once I was saying to somebody, I didn't agree with their view. Then he said back, what about have no view? So I was trying to understand it. Like what I learned is it's really about how I perceive reality. But just help me more on this. I'm still kind of stuck in there. Thank you.
Back to my drawings again. You're like a baby chick in the egg, and you're looking at and you're trying to define the world as being a baby chick in the egg. So you look around and try to define what is real. And as you look at this, as you awaken from being an embryo, you are in a samsaric world, and you're walking around and you believe this to be reality, what is real. And you look at things in this way. You have no idea the vastness of mind, the capability of mind. You only know within the egg. The egg is samsara. And so as long as you stay in the egg, then you're just there, just like dreaming. But you don't really know that you're dreaming, because you look at it and you come up and you peck it at the side. You peck it. It seems solid, right? So you go, well, this must be the world because it's solid, and here's solid, and here's solid. But then you start practicing, and then all of a sudden, lo and behold, you see cracks develop. And you start saying, wait, this maybe it's not as real as it is. And then you see out here, another chicken pecking and telling you, wake up, get out, and start pecking too. And you're listening, you're going, I hear something, but I don't know what it is. But it's interesting. But you just stay in here. Well, you cannot stay in the egg, because the egg is like a how would you say it? A pod, a safety pod. So like if you were on a ship and the ship is sinking, they now have these safety pods that you go out into the ocean, and you can be floating in the ocean in this pod. But you cannot live there because there's only a certain amount of water, a certain amount of food that's in there. You have to understand you have to get out of the pod because you cannot stay here. You cannot, once you finish all of the fluid that sustains you, it's, you know, you're finished. If you die, then you come back and you try it again. But you start making the cracks on the shell. And lo and behold, after a while, there's a hole in the shell that you can peek out and you see a little bit. And then you see that there's people trying to help you. And even in your egg, maybe there's others that are pecking. And what you're trying to do is trying to get out. But you cannot rely on your sense of what you believe to be reality. You have to suspend that and to contemplate. And when you contemplate, your true mind will appear. In that moment, your true mind will appear and you will be able to see things as they really are. And then you understand this was a dream. It's a dream. So you now become this one here that's pecking to try to get the others out. Because even to them inside, they believe that this to be real. But to the ones on the outside, they know that this is just a temporary place, a burning building. And so they have to get out. So you have, in wisdom, you have no other choice but to practice sincerely so that you can get out. Is what Master Ling Chi said, if you do not know where you're going to be reborn the next time, then you should spend all of your attention on practice so that you can control where you go next. You don't want to go out and then you start all over again with no memory and you start again. No, you want to try to do this. So this reality, really, Wendy, try very hard to look beyond the idea of everything around you as to being real, and just keep looking and looking. Okay, it will come. Yes, wrong.
Well, I'm really curious because I follow very well tonight. I'm really curious when you have the Hua Tou, when you actually were feeling the when the master brought the thread to you, you even feel the breath. So it's my guess, both the master and you as the attendant is one person, it's you. But you got the answer, but I don't get the answer.
Just be patient, you just what you said. Contemplate what you just said, because it is, there's gold in that mind that you were just talking about that you can pull from. You are really said something that is actually more profound than you know at this point, but you are capable of uncovering that. Just try to think about what you said, because it's very, very profound in the manner of what you're saying. But I'm not going to point it out to you. I want you to kind of work on it. But this is good. This is sincere thinking about things. This is what we call mind work. No, other people work on this and they talk interpreting the sutras and all of this. We go right into it. We go and say, what is mind? If we don't know mind, how can we even begin to practice on a cushion or in our daily life, or to even talk about the Dharma? So this is what we do all the time, practicing mind. And it doesn't matter whether you've been practicing for 20 years, 30 years, or 2 months. People can make great impact in their practice in a very short time, as long as there's a sincerity there. So your question is a good one. And you need to kind of look at that and say, talking about the master and the attendant, talk about me and the master, whatever, that's somewhere that you really have to look at. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right. That's it for tonight. We're going to continue on with this. I've been giving more formal lectures lately, and I really want to give you all a chance to listen to an exchange between a well-known advisor and students, because it's very, very important. And this is the way we measure students. Sometimes they say to stick a fork in them to see if they're done or not, but also to help novices as well. And Robert, who is a good practitioner at this point in time, it wasn't long ago he was asking what people might consider to be silly questions, but to a novice they're not silly questions. They're important to be responded to. And so we move on in this way. And for those who are more senior students, then you learn how to respond to the questions and how you deal with things. And to be a well-known advisor is not just simply just to give lectures or to study. It is also to give guidance to people, and you would be surprised how much of my time I spend per week talking to people about very serious problems in their lives. That just comes with the territory that's there. But I mean, I am constantly doing that, and sometimes I can't get back to, let's say, novice questions because I'm dealing with people and their and issues in their life. And if we do not have the time for that, then we shouldn't be practicing Chan at all. So that just is something. But those who want to present Chan should know this aspect of it as well. So there'll be more to come on that subject later on. Okay. Join palms. Bow. Thank you all for coming and listening intently, and find your voice next time. So I'm watching you, Melinda. I see you right there. So you find a question, okay? So
Thank you.
Thank you, Gilbert.
Thank you, Gilbert.
Thank you,
thank you
Gilbert.
all.
Thank
Very
you.
much, Gilbert.
Jocelyn, thank you. Thank you.
Gilbert.
Thank you.
Good to
Thank
see
you,
you all.
Gilbert.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Gilbert.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Gilbert.
Gilbert. Thank
Glad
you.
he's gone. Jane's still here. Okay. Oh, there you are. There's like. Take care. I'm going out now.
Bye. Have a good evening,
Bye, thank
everyone.
you.
Bye.
Yeah, going to my next job.
Take care.
Bye-bye.